Ma'am, you need to step aside. This is first class for premium passengers, not black, like you. The words sliced through the air like a blade. Talia Monroe froze. In her hand, a legitimate boarding pass for seat 1A. On her wrist, a limited edition, watch worth more than the gate agent's monthly salary. In her briefcase, a $45 million contract signed yesterday, with the very airline that had just humiliated her in front of dozens of strangers. They thought she didn't belong. But what no one knew was that the woman they shoved out of line held the keys to their entire fleet's future. And in just 15 minutes, she'd bring the entire flight, and the company, to a complete halt. The marble floors of JFK's Terminal B gleamed beneath Talia Monroe's designer heels as she rolled her silver Rimowa suitcase toward the Skyjet first-class check-in. Her movements were smooth, practiced, like someone who'd spent a decade weaving through terminals across 5 continents. The terminal buzzed with morning traffic, chatter, the beep of boarding calls, wheels clacking, and the occasional screaming, "Child." But none of it fazed her. Talia had weathered war zones of corporate politics. Today was supposed to be a victory lap. She was dressed for both comfort and command, crisp navy slacks, a soft cream blouse, and a caramel trench coat that swung like confidence behind her. Her hair was wrapped in a silk scarf, emerald green, with golden accents neatly tied. On her left wrist was a Cartier Panthère watch, a gift she'd bought herself the night her company passed a $500 million valuation. Her phone buzzed. Board approved, 45mm Skyjet contract finalized. She stopped walking and stared at the screen. The words brought a slow smile to her lips. It was done. Roviatech, her company, had officially closed its most important deal to date, a $45 million cybersecurity partnership with Skyjet Airlines. Her tech would protect every Skyjet aircraft system, navigation, in-flight Wi-Fi, customer data, even pilot communications, from cyber attacks. A 3-year negotiation, dozens of briefings, Senate testimonies, legal back and forth. It had all led to this. Now all she had to do was board Flight 147 to San Francisco to meet with Skyjet's executive team for a private demonstration. She'd be flying first class naturally in seat 1A. Her assistant, Jordan, and 2 senior engineers were already aboard, prepping the prototype presentation. They were under strict NDA, but they were buzzing. Talia was the reason this flight was happening. As she reached the first-class counter, she pulled out her phone, opened her Skyjet app, and presented the digital boarding pass. The gate agent didn't even scan it. She glanced at Talia's skin tone, then her scarf, then her ID, and her lips curled into something between a sneer and a smirk. "Ma'am," she said, voice sharp and shallow, "you need to step aside. This is the first-class line." Talia blinked, confused but composed. "Yes, I'm in seat 1A. The agent frowned. "That can't be right. Where did you get this boarding pass?" "From your app. Corporate account. I booked it myself." "Uh-huh." The woman tapped a few keys on her terminal, then gave Talia a tight, suspicious smile. "You'll need to wait over there. This pass has been flagged. It might be counterfeit." Talia felt the familiar heat rise in her chest. Not rage, not yet. Something colder. Deja vu. "I'm sorry. What's been flagged?" The woman turned slightly, speaking into her shoulder mic. "Yeah, I have a passenger here with an invalid. First-class pass, yeah, she's insisting it's hers." Talia stepped forward. "Excuse me, I'm the CEO of Roviatech. My company just signed a cybersecurity contract with Skyjet. I'm not someone who fakes boarding passes." The woman didn't blink. She tapped her radio again. "Can I get a supervisor?" Passengers were starting to stare now. A white man, in a business suit behind Talia, sighed impatiently. Another muttered something under his breath. A minute later, a supervisor in a Skyjet blazer approached, middle-aged, brisk, clearly annoyed. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see that pass." Talia handed it over. He didn't scan it either, just looked at her, then at the pass, then at the agent. "Call TSA," he said. "Wait, excuse me?" Talia's voice was even, but sharp now. "Your name isn't coming up in our system," he lied flatly. "You'll need to step aside, ma'am. Now." 2 TSA officers approached from a nearby kiosk, both white, both looking at her like she was already guilty of something. "Is this the issue?" one of them asked. "Yes," the agent said. "She's attempting to access first class with a suspicious pass." Talia looked from one face to another. Blank, cold, certain. She could feel eyes boring into her back. A child across the terminal was whispering to his mom, "Mommy, what's wrong with that lady?" The mom pulled him away quickly. "Do you have any weapons or electronics on you?" one officer asked. "Just my phone and laptop." "We'll need to search your bag. Please come with us." "No," she said firmly now. "You're making a mistake. I'm a VIP flyer and an executive partner with this airline. I'm supposed to be on that plane, seat 1A. My name is Talia Monroe." But her name meant nothing to them. They didn't even ask to verify it. They just saw a black woman in first class and assumed fraud. Minutes later, they escorted her out of line. No handcuffs, no yelling. Just the quiet humiliation of being removed, of being seen, judged, and discarded. They left her on a bench near gate 36B, alone. Her luggage sat by the podium unattended. Her boarding pass was gone. Her voice was lodged somewhere between fury and silence. Her hands trembled slightly as she dialed Jordan. "Where are you?" he asked. "They said the flight's about to close." "They pulled me," she said, barely a whisper. "Told me my pass was suspicious. They called TSA. I'm sitting outside the gate like a criminal." "What the hell?" Jordan sounded stunned. "You built their damn security systems." "I know." There was a long pause, and then her tone shifted. "No one in that building knows who I am, but they're about to find out." She pulled out her phone and opened the secure folder containing not just the full contract PDF, but the emergency escalation clauses signed off by Skyjet's board just 24 hours earlier, including Clause 3.1b, Executive Integration, which granted her, as the project's lead executive partner, the authority to conduct unscheduled in-flight audits, including boarding and halting operations if necessary. She dialed Skyjet's board liaison. "This is Talia Monroe. I need you to stop Flight 147 from departing. Immediately." 15 minutes after being removed from the boarding line, Talia Monroe was no longer a humiliated passenger. She was now a force the airline couldn't ignore. From the bench near Gate 36B, she watched through the glass as Flight 147 began to taxi away from the gate. It was scheduled for a smooth 10:15 a.m. departure from JFK to SFO, but Talia had already triggered a clause that most people at Skyjet barely remembered existed, until now. "Ms. Monroe, the board liaison is on the line for you," said a nervous voice on the other end of the secure channel. "They're authorizing the audit. You're cleared to board immediately. They're calling the plane back now." Talia stood slowly, smoothing the front of her blazer. Her palms were steady now. Not because she was calm, but because she was focused. This wasn't revenge, it was correction. It was what happened when people assumed power couldn't possibly come in her skin, her voice, her silhouette. Flight 147, now halfway down the taxiway, abruptly paused. Confused passengers looked out the windows. Murmurs spread like a ripple through the cabin. Why had they stopped? Was it a security threat? Mechanical failure? Inside the cockpit, the pilot had just received the directive: return to the gate. Not from air traffic control, but from Skyjet's boardroom itself. Unprecedented. When the doors reopened, there was no announcement, no explanation, just a silent, puzzled wait as the gate bridge extended once more. Then, footsteps. Talia Monroe walked onto the plane, her heels clicking against the polished floor. She carried no bitterness in her face, no outward signs of anger, just authority, pure, composed, and terrifying to those who had dismissed her. The same gate agent, Cynthia, stood at the entrance to the jetway, her mouth parted in disbelief. Her clipboard trembled slightly in her hand. "You," Cynthia began, her voice faltering. "I didn't realize." Talia didn't stop walking. She offered a glance, sharp, controlled. "You didn't realize," she echoed. "You assumed." Cynthia turned crimson, but Talia had already passed her. In the first-class cabin, passengers shifted in their plush leather seats as the woman they had all seen escorted out now returned, escorted by Skyjet's compliance officer and a senior flight coordinator. Some recognized her, some didn't. But all were watching. Jordan, her assistant, stood up instantly in seat 2A, his eyes wide with barely concealed pride and anger. "Boss," he said under his breath. "I'm fine," Talia replied softly, brushing past him. She reached seat 1A, the very one she had been denied, and paused. The man who had taken her seat, the impatient suit-wearing passenger from the boarding line, was still sitting there, headphones around his neck, confusion painted across his face. The compliance officer stepped forward. "Sir, we need you to move to another seat." "Why?" he asked. "This is 1A. "It's reserved for Ms. Monroe." He turned to her. "You're joking." Talia didn't flinch. "Do I look like I'm joking?" Reluctantly, the man gathered his things and shuffled toward another, open seat. Talia sat down in 1A, crossed her legs, and exhaled. The silence around her felt heavy, uncertain. The captain himself appeared from the cockpit, a tall man with graying hair and a face that looked like it hadn't smiled in years. "Ms. Monroe," he said with a slight bow of his head, "we've been instructed to offer our full cooperation. Please let us know how we can accommodate your review." "I won't need long," she said, "but I will address the passengers first." The flight attendant nearest her looked startled. "You mean an announcement?" "No," Talia said, "face to face." She stood up. "I'll be brief," she said to the first-class cabin, raising her voice just enough for everyone nearby to hear clearly. The eyes that had judged her minutes ago now stared with a different intensity. Some embarrassed, others confused, and a few genuinely curious. "I want to apologize," Talia began. "Not for myself, but for the delay. 15 minutes ago I was removed from this aircraft, despite having a valid first-class ticket. I wasn't removed for any violation. I wasn't posing a threat. I was removed because someone looked at me and decided I didn't belong." A hush fell over the cabin. "I was told my ticket might be fake. That first class was for premium passengers, not people like me." She let the silence hang for a beat. "What the airline didn't realize," she continued, "is that I'm not only a premium passenger. I'm the CEO of Roviatech, the company contracted to secure this airline's entire fleet, including this aircraft. You could have heard a pin drop. I don't share this to boast. I share it because it matters. Because how many other qualified, brilliant black professionals have been dismissed, disrespected, or denied simply because someone decided they didn't look the part?" A woman in row 3 lowered her eyes. A man in 2C uncrossed his arms. "My team is responsible for the systems keeping this aircraft safe. The irony is, I could shut it down from my seat. But I don't want power. I want fairness. I want accountability." She sat down again. "Captain," she said calmly, "you may proceed." The pilot gave a stiff nod and turned toward the cockpit. The intercom crackled as the usual safety announcements began, but the tone had changed. Something unseen had shifted in the air, something deeper than policy or protocol. Respect had arrived, late, but undeniable. As the plane began to taxi again, Jordan leaned over. "Boss, that was fire." Talia gave a small smile. "They needed to hear it. You could have torn the whole airline apart. I still might, but for now," she closed her eyes and let the hum of the engines surround her. Not out of peace, but out of preparation. Because this wasn't over. The world had seen her escorted off a plane like she was a problem. Now it would see what happened when the so-called problem came back in power, unapologetically, unshakably, and fully in control. The wheels of Flight 147 screeched softly against the tarmac as the plane touched down at San Francisco International Airport. Normally, this was when passengers would let out a breath of relief. Another journey completed, bags stowed, agendas waiting. But today, the air in the first-class cabin was different. It wasn't relief. It was a stunned, collective silence. Not because of turbulence, not because of technical delays, but because of the woman in Seat 1A. The same woman the airline tried to eject. The same woman who had, 15 minutes before departure, brought the entire plane to a halt, using nothing but her contract and her calm, unshakable voice. Talia Monroe hadn't said another word during the flight. She didn't need to. The damage had already been done, and not to her. To them. Skyjet. The airline that had just finalized a $45 million deal with her cybersecurity firm now found itself at the center of a viral nightmare, because someone had filmed her impromptu address to the cabin. Her voice had been steady, but laced with an emotion that haunted everyone who heard it. Not anger, but disappointment. That sting was what stuck with people. By the time the jet rolled to a stop at Gate C-12, the video had already hit 820,000 views on TikTok, another 300,000 on X. Headlines had begun cropping up mid-air. One read, Black Tech CEO booted from first class, then grounded Skyjet's flight in real time. Another, she designed the security that keeps Skyjet flying, then they treated her like a threat. As Talia stood and collected her bag, she felt the eyes again, this time not judging but unsure, maybe even apologetic. A few passengers nodded subtly as she walked past them, but she didn't stop. She didn't offer comfort. She wasn't here to make them feel better. At the top of the jet bridge, Skyjet's regional PR manager and two members of their executive team were waiting, flanked by security and sweating bullets. Ms. Monroe, the woman began, stepping forward with an extended hand and a forced smile. We're so terribly... Talia didn't take the hand. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for accountability. She walked straight past them. Minutes later, in the backseat of a black SUV, her phone rang. Jonathan Rex, the CEO of Skyjet. Ms. Monroe, he said, his voice tight and desperate. Please let me personally extend... Don't waste. Breath on apologies, Jonathan, she said, staring out the tinted window. This isn't just about me. It's about your entire culture. Talia, please, he said, shifting his tone. Let's meet. I'll launch an investigation. Sensitivity, training, suspension of the staff involved, anything. But this can't go public the way it's going. You understand the magnitude? Oh, I do, she said sharply. And I've made my decision. I'm invoking Clause 74B. He went silent, for a long beat. That clause terminates your services immediately. It suspends them, along with all active support teams, and revokes license access to the Skynet Secure OS, effective immediately. Do you know what that would do to our operations? He snapped. Yes, she said. It'll ground your top 5 routes within 48 hours. International protocols will revert to legacy systems. High risk, vulnerable. Look, can we just slow down? No, Jonathan. You moved quickly when a gate agent decided I didn't belong. Now you can live with what it feels like when someone else controls the outcome. She hung up. By that evening, the story had snowballed into a national conversation. Cable news, podcasts, op-eds, all grappling with the same central truth. A black woman, holding institutional power, had used it to demand something rarely seen in corporate America: real-time justice. Skyjet's press statement, rushed and clinical, only fanned the flames. Their claim of a misunderstanding rang hollow. And by morning, they were dealing with far more than bad PR. 3 major Skyjet flights out of New York, Chicago, and LAX were grounded. Rovia Tech's license removal meant their planes couldn't pass FAA cybersecurity compliance. The ripple effects were immediate. Financial analysts called it a contractual detonation. Skyjet stock dipped 11% in a single day. By the following afternoon, Sit with Talia trended on every major platform. Social media was flooded with black professionals sharing their own first-class moments, being asked if they were in the wrong seat, questioned about their credentials, assumed to be someone's assistant, never the executive. Talia, meanwhile, remained quiet. She didn't tweet. She didn't take interviews. She let the system that underestimated her reveal itself. Back in her San Francisco hotel suite, she sat beside her assistant Jordan, reading through hundreds of messages. "You broke the internet," he said, half in awe. "I didn't break anything," she replied. "I just stopped protecting it." A pause. Then she turned to him. "Schedule a press conference." Jordan blinked. "To respond to Skyjet?" "No," she said, eyes gleaming. "To introduce something new." The hotel ballroom in downtown San Francisco filled slowly but intentionally. No flashy banners, no product teasers, just a clean white stage, a single microphone, and a black backdrop emblazoned with 2 words in gold serif letters. "We remember." Every seat was taken, press badges flashed. Executives who'd once brushed off Talia Monroe's firm now waited nervously in the back rows. Venture capitalists leaned forward, phones poised to record. They had come expecting a rebranding, a public flogging of Skyjet, maybe even a dramatic cancellation of contracts. What they got was something no one anticipated. Talia stepped onto the stage without music or fanfare. She wore a tailored cream suit, her hair braided back tightly. No jewelry, no armor, just clarity. She paused, let the silence stretch. Then she began. 3 days ago, she said evenly, I was pulled out of a first-class line for not looking the part. I was told, word for word, this is for premium passengers, not black like you. I was told my boarding pass must be fake. I was escorted away, questioned, humiliated. And not once did they scan it. But let's be honest, this isn't about Skyjet. This isn't even about me. It's about the assumption that certain faces don't belong in certain spaces. That black excellence is an exception instead of a standard. A hush blanketed the room. The audio from the live stream spiked, 500,000 viewers, then 1 million, then 2. My name is Talia Monroe. I built Rovia Tech from a folding table and a rented laptop. I now lead a cybersecurity empire that protects hospitals, rail systems, even your phones. And yes, airplanes. So when Skyjet pulled me from that line, they weren't just disrespecting a customer. They were disrespecting their own infrastructure, the very one I designed to keep their planes in the sky. And I want you to understand something. That gate agent did not make a mistake. She followed an instinct, one carved from decades of exclusion, of media bias, of systemic privilege. She didn't see a CEO. She saw a problem, a threat, a fraud. A few reporters shifted, stunned. One teared up quietly in the third row. Talia continued. But here's what she and Skyjet didn't expect. I am not afraid of disruption. I am the disruption. She turned to gesture toward a large screen, which flickered to life with a live dashboard. Skynet system status, suspended. Per contract, I pulled every digital certificate Rovia Tech provided to Skyjet. Their aircraft are grounded or flying blind under legacy protocols, not permanently, but enough to send a message, because until black women can pass through your gates without suspicion, you don't deserve the systems we build. Applause erupted, first hesitant, then thunderous. The live stream chat exploded with Tacha we remember hashtags. Some cried, some sat still, awed, but Talia wasn't done. This isn't revenge, this is architecture. Because while they were trying to decide if I deserved first class, I was building something bigger. The screen changed again. A new logo, Oryx, beneath it. Global aviation security. By us. For all. Gasps echoed around the room. I'm launching Oryx, an aviation security platform developed and led by a coalition of black engineers, women technologists, and underrepresented minds from every corner of the tech world. We're not here to knock at closed doors anymore. We're building our own terminals. Our first clients? Emirates, Virgin Air, and yes, Delta. We start integration Monday. The room stood. All of it. Investors, competitors, journalists. A standing ovation not for a product, but for a principle. Backstage, her assistant Jordan was speechless. They're calling it the speech of the decade, he said, handing her a glass of water. Talia took it, but her hands weren't shaking. She was calm, centered. Did you leak the advisory to Skyjet? She asked. Jordan nodded. They'll see the news within the hour. She nodded slowly. Good. An hour later, in a sterile boardroom at Skyjet headquarters, 5 men stared at a wall-mounted TV where the Oryx logo glowed brightly. Jesus Christ, one muttered. She didn't just pull the contract, she launched a competitor. She torched us in public, said another. The CEO, Jonathan Rex, said nothing. His face was pale. His phone buzzed non-stop. What do we do? Jonathan finally stood. We tried to erase her. Instead, she made herself unforgettable. He turned to his COO, pulled together a statement, cancel tomorrow's investor meeting, and someone, book me a coach seat on any airline that'll still take us. 48 hours later. Back at her office in Atlanta, Talia walked through Rovia Tech's newly remodeled lobby. Sleek black stone floors, a live digital wall showing real-time cybersecurity, events and portraits of underrepresented tech pioneers on every surface. She paused in front of a new one. Dr. Gladys West, the black woman who helped invent GPS. Jordan walked up beside her. CNN called again. And Forbes. And The Guardian. Talia smiled faintly. Tell them to wait. You've become a symbol, you know. People are calling you the Rosa Parks of airspace. She chuckled. I'm just an engineer with a boarding pass. But you rewrote the rules. No, she said. I just made sure they couldn't ignore the ones that already existed. Jordan looked at her, something shifting in his expression. Respect, yes, but something more. Pride. Talia? Yeah? You belong in first class. Always. She didn't reply. She just looked again at the wall of pioneers, smiled to herself, and walked forward. Because Talia Monroe wasn't just reclaiming her seat, she was building the plane now. And this time, no one could stop her from flying.